charge of the towers here at the Riverbend Greenhouse, and I'm here to tell you a little bit more about them and how they work and what it's like to manage them. So as you can see here, we have these towers here. This is Tower 3, Tower 2, and Tower 1 is just right over there. So overall, with these 3 towers, we have up to 1,200 heads of lettuce being produced in one cycle only. It may seem like a lot to take care of 1,200 heads of lettuce, but the way this system works is fairly simple, as most of the work is done by the unit. So you just need to be sure that it's plugged up, ready to go, that every once in a while you fill up the bottles with the appropriate fertilizer, pH. From there, you can kind of leave the unit alone. You mostly depend on the app to see what level pH, what level EC that your water is, and you just need to keep an eye on it. So this is the unit here. This is the thing that's doing all the work for you that you don't need to manually do. So we have pH minus here, pH plus is in this tube. We have fertilizer A and fertilizer B. And here we have our pH probe and then our EC probe. So all you need to do if you need to check it, clean it, anything like that, you just unscrew right here, pop it up, clean it, put it right back in. You can maybe see here that these look fairly empty. We are at the end of our growth cycle for Tower 3. I am not filling these all the way up. I don't want to waste all the pH. But you would typically want to keep these pretty high level just to make sure you don't need to fill these up all that often.
Filling these bottles up is not very hard. All you need to do is unscrew the top of the containers of the bottles, fill it up however much you'd like with the correct liquid, screw it back, and you're good to go. Every now and then you should check the bottles and make sure that everything is working properly. All you need to do is pull it out. It takes a bit of strength, but just pull it out, check it, put it back in, make sure that it is fully pushed back in, and you're good to go.
Heaviest maintenance that is required for the system is by filling up the water tanks. Depending on the time of season, what type of crops you're growing, you may need to do between every 2 to 4 days. You need to come back to your system, fill up the water, and then you need to clean feed. We are in the middle of summer, so it is every other day, and the lettuce especially are at their peak growing stage. So they're taking up a lot of water, and they've only not had water for a single day, and they already need to be refilled. So I'll be able to do that, show what it looks like. Yeah. So how do we fill up these water tanks? Well, it's very easy, very accessible actually. All you need to do is remove this little topper here, and from there you get complete access to the water tank. So I just make sure that the cycle's not running, that the irrigation system isn't going on, that the water pump isn't going. I want to be sure that the water is all completely there before I fill it up. So get your hose and you begin filling it up. I fill it up until it reaches half an inch below the max, and I usually do that with a ruler, so I just measure how much water is left that needs to be filled, and from there you're pretty much good to go. You just need to do that every 2 to 4 days and you're perfectly fine. The app itself too does get notification when the water level is low, so that's also a nice comfort that you'll be notified if something's wrong with your system, if you need to come back, refill it, whatever. Okay, measuring how much water it took to get half an inch below max, it was 54.9 liters. So these plants, they really suck up the water, especially in these hot times. So gotta really be on top of it, because if I was a day or two late, there's a chance that the water could have completely ran out. And don't want to deal with that. It can damage the pump, and you may need to disassemble some of the towers to get the pump back working again. So definitely have to be on top of it. So the hydroponics tower system, how exactly does it work? It works similar to the NFT system in that it relies on gravity to pull water down, except of it being just slightly off balance. Horizontal wise, it is completely vertical. So there are 10 towers per rack, and there's a pump at the bottom in the water tank. In the water tank, based on whatever schedule you put for the water pump to turn on, it'll go on, go up, and then around. And I'll show a video of like how this works. It'll go up, around, and there's little dispensers in each tower top that will spit out the fluid, spit out the water. That's usually mixed with fertilizer, pH correction, etc. And it goes down the tower naturally by gravity, collects back into the water tank. You go on the app, you select what type of pH you'd like for your plants, you select what type of EC you want the unit to keep the water level at, and from there you're pretty much good to go. You can just put the water in the tank, let the unit work its magic, and all of a sudden the water is perfectly primed for whatever plant you want to go. This system is supposed to be completely autonomous, although it is by no means for hands-on. You definitely need to be on top of it. You need to be sure that stuff is going well, make sure that the technology is working correct. This is a very technologically dependent system. And while that is great for many applications, there's always going to end up being some type of failure. That's just an inevitability when you're depending on technology for these types of stuff. So unfortunately, like I said, because this is a technology-based system, there's always rooms for failure. There's always room for power outage, always room for something just going wrong. We've had multiple issues with the Bluetooth smart plugs that are connected. They're connected all the way up here to an extension cord, but we've had so many issues with those that can be resolved just by unplugging, replugging. I have no idea exactly how that works. That's definitely something you want to be on top of. That's definitely something you need to keep in mind, that whenever there's a failure in the app, you can just maybe resolve it by resetting the entire system, resetting the unit, unplugging, replugging the extension cord. But I also think you should see here, while our cycle here does look great, our first cycle was even better. And for the second cycle here, you can see that there seem to be a lot of heads missing, and that is unfortunately due to, we don't exactly know, but we hypothesize that the pumps that are in this system aren't quite strong enough to supply enough water to all these lettuces in this hot season. So these weren't getting enough water, even though water was flowing through. They would almost be sticking to the center pole, like there wasn't enough force being put out by the pump to supply the water to be effectively dripping down correctly. It's so strange because we never had something like that in the first cycle. The only thing that really changed was the temperature. So it's just maybe the system isn't well equipped to handle that much, or maybe there's something wrong in terms of the cleaning process or whatnot. Not entirely sure.
And now we're going to be looking at some data analysis. We're going to be looking at lettuce growth, water consumption, chlorophyll, anthocyanin, and the yield. So just as a note, we have two locations with two different cycles. Riverbend has clear glass walls, which means it's going to have full sun. Hog Mountain's going to have double polycarbonate walls, which means it's going to have partial light. And cycle 1 took place during January, February. Cycle 2 took place between March and April. So those are definitely going to mess with how our lettuce grows. This is the lettuce growth for Riverbend cycle 1. You can see that the east, west, north, south, and height, they all follow pretty similar trends and show a gradual increase in lettuce growth. They grew to be up to 20 or more higher in height. And this is Hog Mountain Cycle 1, which shows a level of shrinkage, unfortunately due to technical difficulties with the system. Riverbend Cycle 2 also experienced the same trends as Cycle 1 with steady growth, although this one is more accurate. We tried a new measuring method that tried to make it as accurate as possible. And this is Hog Mountain Cycle 2, which follows the same exact trends, although with lesser measurements. Comparing Cycle 1 greenhouses, you can see this table here, which is the aggregate of all east, west, north, south, and height averages for each greenhouse. Riverbend in the numerator, Hog Mountain will be in the denominator. This is all for Cycle 1 again, and you can see this number here, 115.31%. All that number means is that Rack 1's lettuce from Riverbend was 115.31% on average taller than Rack 1's lettuce from Hog Mountain. Then when getting the average east, west, north, south, and heights all together, you can see that there is approximately a 105 to 120% increase overall, just based off increased sunlight. And just a quick look at temperature here, you can see that between Riverbend and Hog Mountain did a better job of keeping its temperature stable, which makes sense. It's a controlled environment, but that's for both locations. This data shows really that Hog Mountain does a better job of insulating the heat that may come from warmer temperatures, the warmer season, than Riverbend would. And onto that, we can look at water levels. The water levels here for cycle 1 interestingly depict Hog Mountain to have greater water level consumption on average than Riverbend, which is interesting because Hog Mountain has diffused light. There is not as much light coming in, and as you just saw, it's going to be on average a more controlled environment with lower temperature levels. Maybe there are more factors at play here for water levels, but it seems that sunlight is not a direct component of it, or a possible miscalculation could also be the case. It's important to understand what DLI is. DLI is the amount of photons or light that a plant in an environment absorbs within a given time frame. And this is per day that's depicted in the chart. And what I specifically want you to look at is those light green and gray lines, which is Riverbend and Hog Mountain's DLI. You can tell that from the beginning in January to February, they're pretty low. And then by the end, up in April, they're super high. While cycle 2 manifested a lot more difficulties with the system, this could have also influenced the growing capabilities, with light becoming more of an inhibitor than an enhancer for lettuce growth. Now, anthocyanin and chlorophyll were interesting to look at because it did not provide the exact results that I was expecting. So I've always heard that greater light usually results in more green plants, but that's not always the case. As you can see, for Hog Mountain, the chlorophyll and anthocyanin, at least for cycle 1, are dramatically bigger than for Riverbend. Overall, cycle 2 did worse than cycle 1 for both locations, which was interesting to see, as you would think there would be greater levels of chlorophyll. There's more light coming in, yet that is not the case here. This data really just goes to show that the environment can dramatically affect not only the size of the lettuce, but also the quality of it. Now this table shows the yield that we got from each location and each cycle, and you can see definitely some differences, and the yield that excludes the lettuce that we were previously measuring, but most notably you can see that Hog Mountain certainly suffered from the bad lettuce, the unsaleable lettuce, which we classified as lettuce that was wilting, that was non-desirable, had tip burns, necrosis, etc. Interestingly enough, cycle 2 did much better than cycle 1 for Riverbend, accordingly. You can see that there is a lot more yield from the lettuce, and there's only slightly more bad lettuce. Although I would like to emphasize that this is purely by weight and is not looking over the quality of lettuce, which I can assure was significantly better in cycle 1. And overall, the reasoning for why Riverbend did so much better than Hog Mountain, one is of course more sunlight, which could help with lettuce growth, but also there was better supervision. Unfortunately, there were not enough resources to constantly check on Hog Mountain, and for that it suffered and could not be caught in time if there was any issues going on. It'd often be a little too late.
So, coming down to the base of it, we need to ask, do we prefer an autonomy or manually doing this? Right now I'm next to, right here, one is an NFT system where you need to do it manually. You need to do all pH, you need to do all fertilizer, you need to put it all in manually through the system and constantly need to refill it, constantly need to monitor it. Even though this is supposed to be an autonomous system, it is just as, if not much more, needing of monitoring. We've had errors in the app where it says that fertilizers aren't replenished when they are. It says that a lot of the pH is empty, and it just never gets fixed. Maybe resetting the system does fix it for a short while, but it always comes back up. Other main issues that we've dealt with is blockages in the system. We may see some red tape here and there on powers 2 and 3, and the cause of that is that I needed to change out those plants at the very beginning of our second cycle. And the reason for that mostly was due to blockages in the system. Up there at the top hole, the water goes through and it drops down on each of the 10 towers being trapped. Thankfully, the system is fairly unscrewable. Like, you can disassemble, reassemble it fairly easy. It's all pretty much PVC piping. Me disassembling some of the components at the top, I found up to 3 blockages in the portion where the water is supposed to spit out and feed the plants. The blockage was a plastic piece, very little plastic pieces that were just stuck and somehow got dislodged. It overall decreased the water pressure that was being spit out, and it killed well over 30 heads of lettuce from the get-go. So we weren't able to figure out what went wrong. So it's stuff like that that has become an issue. It's something that's not in your control. It's something you need to be very wary of. So dealing with that has been a bit of an experience, but overall, I've had fun with it. I've had fun figuring out the challenges, figuring out what the problem is, figuring out the solutions. If anything, this system tests on your troubleshooting skills. It's testing your skills to just think rationally, think about what possible causes of stuff happening. Is it one factor? Is it multiple? Just figuring out those things has been so rewarding in me trying to effectively problem solve and figure out, okay, what's the base we need to go off of? What do we know isn't causing the problem? What do we know could be causing the problem? Overall, working with these towers has been such a great experience, and even though that they have some issues, they are by no means issues that outweigh the benefits. It is an extremely convenient system that prioritizes efficiency, and being able to work with it has just been such a blessing. In terms of the water flow issue, that is by no means an unfixable problem. We would probably just need a stronger pump that would push the water with more pressure so that in times of heavy heat and stress, it won't compromise and decrease the amount of water flow. And the other issues with technology, being able to just be aware of those issues is really the best thing you can do to overcome them. When I say that we had a lot of technological errors with the bottle saying that the acid was empty or that whatever was empty, it never really affected the ability for the system to continue to correct the solution. So it wasn't that big of an issue. At other times where technology just wasn't working correctly, it's just a click of a button and it's fixed. So in terms of those type of issues, it is much less labor intensive. It is very quick, very easy to finish. The hardest part is just recognizing when those problems happen and making sure that the problems just don't go on for too long, because it could kill some of your lettuce. Technology definitely makes things work a lot easier, especially when it's at its optimum. You can tell from the data analysis we did have a fairly successful harvest, and being able to work with this system, being able to troubleshoot it, I can only tell that it can get better and better from here.